Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Joyful Solopreneur Podcast. I am here with my co-host, Kathy Basel, and myself, Mary Gaul. And the Joyful Solopreneur Podcast is the go-to podcast for solopreneurs seeking to infuse joy back into your business. Each episode is brimming with actionable advice and heartfelt insights, empowering you to shape the business on your terms. From honing your message to playful profit planning, prepare to engage with a supportive community that advocates for joy, creativity, and successful entrepreneurship. Let's dive into this episode of the Joyful Solopreneur Podcast. Yay!
Is right. And here's a big one, because today we're talking about the path to prosperity and that crucial shift of becoming your own CEO. And it's such a subtle mindset shift, but it really, to me, kind of represents so much. We can go into entrepreneurship sometime because we're called to serve in a certain way, but we need to really make sure that we're able to elevate our vision, and it kind of goes through the path that we've shared up until now of getting clear on your passion and what you want to, the change you want to make, but allowing yourself to work on your business, not always getting stuck working in your business.
Yes, yes. I love that phrase, and I remind my clients of that all the time. And myself, right? I'm an entrepreneur, so sometimes we get stuck in those patterns, right? And we're like, okay, wait a minute, I'm stepping into the worker mode, right? So this becoming your own CEO, the classic business book around that is E-Myth or E-Myth Revisited, right? Many people refer to that often, right? Where you're the technician, or you're the manager, or you're the owner, right? And when you get to the owner, the entrepreneur stage is where we want to go. But so many solopreneurs stay in that technician role. So we're still the ones delivering the service, creating the products, doing all of the roles, right? So
it's funny. My dad used to say, some of the old generational kind of things of like, why pay somebody to do the things that you can do yourself?
yes.
And he was stuck in that. He was an entrepreneur, never a good one, but always an entrepreneur, and always trying to do his own brochures and all the stuff. I'm like, please, Dad, please pay somebody to do your stuff, right, so that you're projecting that stuff. But he was never able to elevate himself higher, to think bigger for his business to become more profitable.
Right, right. And sometimes when we calculate, if we have our own internal, hourly rate that we're thinking of, or if you've calculated out, this is how much I made, how many hours I worked, and so that equals this number, right? Whatever that number is, that's how we value our time, even though our time is much more valuable than that. And so sometimes we get stuck in that number, and then we look at what somebody else might charge us to do something, and they're like, well, that's more than I make per hour, right? So I'll just do it myself. However, if you paid somebody to do it, they're going to do it more efficiently, more professionally, most likely. And that frees you up to do the stuff that only you can do, right? That nobody else can do in your business, which is where that real CEO, when you drive the vision, when you drive, here's how I want to serve my clients, right? Even if you're a CEO of a solopreneur business, you can be CEO of your solopreneur business, right? You don't have to have a whole team of people underneath you. We're going to talk about teams in just a moment, but it really is a mindset shift. And so I went through that myself when I started my first business, right? I'd always been in the corporate world, had that corporate kind of mentality, and then got into my own business, which was a virtual assistant company. And I knew I needed to grow past myself and my own limiting capacity, right? There's only so many hours I could work during the day. I had to figure out a way to add more people, or add more time, add more capacity, so that when I was getting referrals, I would start to dread referrals. Like, oh my gosh, I cannot take on another client. Like I just cannot mentally take on another client. But you don't want to turn away business as an entrepreneur either. So it's like, what's the solution? So I needed to step outside of myself. I knew that there was a solution because I'd done that in the corporate world. That's what I did for a living, right? But I couldn't see it for myself in my own business. So I had to find a business coach. I joined a peer advisory board, and that outside community helped me see ways to step out of the technician role and into the CEO, to work on my business and not in my business all the time, right? So
It's so,
so
so
I did need
important,
some outside
Mary.
help. Yeah.
Yeah, of just the external eyes, even if it's something that we are great at, we still
Yeah.
need that set of external eyes that can look at the bigger picture, people who've been walked that path before us, that can guide us through that and see opportunities or see ways of connecting the dots or seeing ways to leverage. But like you
Mhm.
said, it's so easy for us to get caught in almost that trading the time for dollars, but or even chasing a lower priced offering that's
Mhm.
never going to give us the space to breathe, to have that time away so that we can vision bigger for the business and grow it. So
Yes, yes. And so I really did eventually, within about a year of getting some outside eyes on my business and working on my mindset too, like I don't have to do everything in my business. I don't have to control every little piece. And, bringing on some contractors to help me get some of the work done for our clients. And then the next hurdle was, but I was still the go-to with the client, right? So I was keeping that relationship. It's like, this is my client. I'm holding on to that, right? And so then you have to mentally let go of that as well and say, I'm being a bottleneck here. I'm getting in the
yeah,
way of communication because everything has to come through me between the VA and the client, right? So I'm creating more harm than good. So how do I step out of that role? And that was another mental hurdle I had to overcome, right? As an entrepreneur, is like, okay, I'm going to trust my client to this contracted VA, right? And let them work together. And I'm just here in the background if something goes wrong or if they need me to pull me in on the project. But I don't have to be involved in the daily work with that client, right? So that was another big hurdle for me to let go of and say, okay, it's still my business, but I don't have to know, I don't have to do all the work and I don't have to be a bottleneck in that client flow of work and communication.
and huge because now you've gotten
Yeah.
to the point where like how much time do you spend on that business?
Right. Not very many, a few hours a month. Yeah. And it runs itself. So really, unless there is a problem with the client, which that always, sometimes happens too, where you have to step in as the CEO and manage the situation, right? But it's pretty rare. And for the most part, once you get people onboarded and, then they're just working directly with my clients and I just review the billing and that's that, right? Which is nice. So but it took the first 2 or 3 years of my business to really learn to trust myself, find the other people that I could trust with my clients, figure out how to make that relationship work, both with my clients and with the VAs I was contracting. And then, really learn to step into that CEO role. Like what do I want my role to be in the business? I know I don't want to be doing that work, the VA work anymore. So what does it look like for me to have that business and not do that? Right. So I had to step out into that mindset of what it could look like and then start to build it from there.
I'd be curious what the Mary now would advise the Mary getting started back then and how to manage her expectations. Because, I think we can get all set, okay, by a year I'll have this, that, or the other thing and lined up. And typically, kind of like a good kitchen remodel, it's going to take
Right.
longer and
Mhm.
more money than you anticipate. And just to be recognizing that, they talked about the path to success, kind of be more like this. So I'd be curious
Right.
what you would advise mentor yourself about then.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest lessons I learned, which goes back to episode 1 of the Joyful Solopreneur podcast, right, is connecting to the things that you're really good at that bring you joy. And so my pinnacle gift, as I shared in that episode, is to be a creative, thoughtful leader. So I am a leader. Typically, virtual assistants are not a leader, right? They are like, I'll take your plan and implement it for you, right? I have that skill set. I can implement things, but it's not how I would love to show up, right? As the leader, as somebody who gets to be creative, not just taking somebody else's plan and implementing it. And so I would find that I was doing that naturally with my clients anyway, saying, hey, let's do a little bit of strategy around this before we implement this or whatever, right? So I was doing that. And so that's when I launched the coaching business because that's what I really love doing. So, I probably would have, I still needed to make that transition, I think, at the beginning is going from corporate employee to owning a job that I created myself to being the owner of the company, right? I think you still have to go through those kind of trials, but I probably would have gotten there a little bit faster had I connected to what brings me joy earlier, right? I would have been able to maybe
And your
transition.
highest gift, just like you said, just
Yeah,
because we're good at that, because I have a lot of technical skills, so I can do
right.
that
Yeah, me
stuff.
too. Like we can
And
get a lot of stuff done, right? But it
yeah,
doesn't necessarily bring us the most joy. Yeah.
yeah. And thinking of, I like to think in terms of service, like what is the greatest service that I can do for clients? And that's really helping them to dial in on their passion and see that bigger vision and help them simplify this stuff so that they've got more time to connect to their joy. So what a great and just recognizing that that's part of all of our learning and evolving, we're a personal growth cycle
Yeah.
is to allow ourselves that time to grow into. And I like to, early on, it took me a stretch to think of myself as a thought leader, but what would it take for you to see yourself as that? One of the best questions I heard that helped me to make that shift is somebody said, if you were already today that version of you, the CEO that's already running $1 million business, what decision would you be making? So would it be a big
Mhm.
deal to hire, another VA or a accountant or, a marketing person or salesperson? What
Right.
decisions would you be making? And to project that and recognize that somewhere in between is where you get to be now. But it's interesting because I think one of the most important things is for us of that self-efficacy of that identity of seeing yourself as that CEO, that you are the leader, that you're the
Mhm.
thought leader, that you're contributing on a bigger level than maybe you even recognize for yourself at the moment, which again ties back to why it's so important to have this team around you, the leaders, the coworkers, the other peers, because it is going to be a challenging, psychologically challenging journey at times
Yeah.
that we need to maintain momentum in building towards our dream, and that we need people around us that believe us and can cheer us on so that we're making that consistent action. But
Yeah. And that kind of ties back into, what we were talking about, how we view our hourly rate and the value of that hourly rate, and then the value of what we might pay somebody to do that work for us, right? But if you're really connected to your CEO, you might be charging this amount, an hourly rate if you're, working one-on-one with clients. But the value that you're bringing and the value of your time and your strategic thinking and all of your knowledge and your gifts, that's at a higher level. And that's what entrepreneurs sometimes they don't know what that number is, to say, okay, my value as the CEO is $200 an hour versus the $45 an hour I charge, or $88 an hour, or whatever it might be, right? So they're not seeing the full value of their time and the potential of what they could create if they had that time and energy back by outsourcing something to the team that can get it done, right? Um, so that kind of brings us into building your part-time team. So this podcast is all about the joyful solopreneur, right? Kathy and I are both solopreneurs. We have teams of people that support us, but technically it's just us in our business, right? We don't have employees. And there's 22 million solopreneurs in the United States. So we're not alone. There's lots of us out there figuring it out and figuring out how to run a business by ourselves. And who are the team that we need to have help us so that we can have the CEO time, so that we can have that creative thinking time to serve our clients better.
yeah, and it's interesting. I think at the beginning it becomes almost like a informal support group around us. So that might be your significant others or family, friends, that kind of a thing. But the more we can fortify that team around us, I think one of the very first steps to take is to make sure that you've got some kind of business mentorship. So
Mhm.
somebody who's walked the path before you that can guide you expertly through some of the potential pitfalls and save you, those detours that don't pan out so well. And Mary, your format with the peer advisory groups where you've got other entrepreneurs walking the same journey that can give you those outside eyes that we're talking about, that can be so valuable to say, oh wait, this color is off, or, I
Right.
don't use the word this, I don't, solopreneur. Maybe it's, on purpose entrepreneur, or whatever the thing is. The slight tweak can help you make all the difference when things are aligned, but we can't necessarily see that within ourselves. We think we're communicating and expressing that in a way that is effective, but truly, until we've got outside eyes and begin to work with other people, it's going to be a challenge.
Right, right. And that pertains to everything about the systems that we use in our business, the language that we use to describe how we talk to our clients, right? How we manage the money that comes into our business. So there's all kinds of people that can help supplement us to run our business. And I love the peer advisor boards because we say all the time, we don't know what we don't know. And so when you're learning from other other entrepreneurs, and you're sitting around a table and having discussions about what's happening really behind the scenes of your business, that's where that expertise can come in, and you can learn things from somebody, next to you is going through something, and you're like, oh, I hadn't even thought about that, but I can see that coming in my future, in the next few months or whatever it is. So I need to pay attention. I need to know about that, or I need to put that plan in place. Right. So we don't know what we don't know. And that's where the group think can kind of help you. And then going back to your hiring the expertise that you need, right? So VAs, I run a VA business. You work with VAs, contractor VAs, right? So a virtual assistant, that's what VA means, virtual assistant, is such a powerful tool when you can have the idea and then you can hand it off to somebody and they can implement it. It's such a powerful thing for your business. So I was just telling Kathy right before we hopped on to record this podcast that I have switched softwares, and part of the software package that I'm in now includes 2 hours of implementation or building for me. And so I just have switched that. I just took advantage of that in the month of May. And it was so nice. Like, here's all the details about this. They built the funnel for me, built all the landing pages, the emails, all of that stuff. And it was just done. And I just can't tell you what a relief that is as a small business owner. And that's what a good VA can do for you, to really help you. If you say, here's what I want to do, and they can say, okay, here's how we can do it. Or I can take that and implement it for you, right? So whether that comes to your marketing, to your operations, to your follow-up, all of those kind of things, onboarding new clients, there's many areas that we can apply it to, right? Where if you have the right person on your team as a virtual assistant, they can really help you stay out of the weeds and the tactical stuff and let you stay at that high level CEO thinking.
Which I think one of the most important things is understanding your own bandwidth. And to me, a lot of that is just really managing your own mind. Like, how much focus can you possibly have if you've got a million details in your mind still? I think of it as the tickies in the back of your head, whether you're thinking about it or not. If you're worried about whether that registration form is going to get published in time, and if all the responders are going to be working properly, if you could just take that mental chit chat and it's an entire block and pass it off, and just feel that breath, as we were talking beforehand, talking about giving that. Yours was a complex sign up process, but you can feel in your body that the expansion happening. So what would it take for you to have peace of mind so that you can focus and be that CEO and have that time for that to take, like, those weekly retreat times, that thinking time to vision bigger for your business?
Yeah. So VAs are a great addition to any solopreneur's team, right? Just getting some help. And that could be, there's so many tools that we think, oh, there's Canva. I can just go create my own graphics, right? I love Canva. I love going in there and playing around, but usually I start with a beautiful template, and by the time I make all my edits, like, it's kind of boring, right? So I destroy what Canva makes beautiful. So for me, I can make some things that are passable, but if it's something really important to me, I have a great graphic designer, and I know she's going to make it look professional. She's going to get it done quickly, and I don't have to spend 2 or 3 hours in Canva ditzing around with something that turns out to be okay looking, right? So again, what's the value of my time? What's the value of having a good person to do my graphics for me? I can pay her for an hour of her time, or I can spend 2 or 3 hours in Canva making it myself. And
Yeah, it's funny because I've actually got a design background. I find the same thing, that it's such a pleasure to be able to pay somebody,
yeah.
even though I've got the thing, but we can get we're so close, and the business becomes so personal that we
Mhm.
angst like over time about
Yes.
creating
Yeah.
something. It's just like, what can you get to done? And
Right.
by outsourcing something like that, it'll be a joy to you, even if it is something that's fun for
Right.
you. But to have it done so that you can step onto that higher lily pad. Um,
Yes. Yes. The other person that I encourage my clients to get in their business as soon as they possibly can is a bookkeeper, right? So making sure that your books are in order and that you know your numbers. As a CEO, you need to know your numbers. And
yeah.
so if you if you can keep track of that on a spreadsheet to begin with, that's great. You can use Wave, which is free accounting software. That's the next step up, right? And then maybe you get to QuickBooks or some other software, right? But and then having somebody help you, even if they just help you set it up to begin with, so you know, here's my chart of accounts, here's my expenses, here's how my income comes in, here's how I want to see my profit and loss statements, right? And then looking at those statements each month to say, how am I doing? Am I making money? Am I losing money? Did I spend too much more? Did I spend way more than I made, right? Because I forgot I had to pay contractors out of the money that came in, or whatever it is. So really having a good set of books, and if that's not your strength, outsourcing that to somebody. There's amazing bookkeepers of all levels out there, right? So somebody who can just reconcile for you, and you can print out your own reports, all the way to people that can prep and file your taxes for you. So you can choose your adventure there, but I think it's just so vitally important for CEOs to know their numbers of what's happening in their business. And if that's not your strong suit, a good bookkeeper can help you understand the numbers that are coming into your business.
Yeah, let's infuse a little bit of this joyful thing too, because
Yeah.
I think a lot of us have a certain mental resistance to looking at the numbers or the sales or whatever that is. But the numbers, what if we looked at the numbers as a way to actually bring more spaciousness and joy into your business? So there's always the 80-20 rule, that 80% of your profit is going to come from 20% of your efforts. So what if you can make a mental game out of it to say, it's almost like Easter egg hunting, or like searching for the gold kind of a thing. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, where's the gold in this number? And understanding, where am I spending my time versus where is the revenue actually coming through? Maybe there's loads of things that you thought, because we're doing it from in here, we think is going to be of value to our clients, but we end up spending all this time for this little bit, where all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a second, I'm spending the more money, back to that hourly wage kind of a thing. Like,
Mhm.
where are you getting the closer to your $250 an hour kind of number? So what if this could be joyful, and you get to offload huge chunks of the load, so you got more freedom, more joy, more, just service. How do you get to bring your
Yeah.
highest gifts? And that's
Yes.
where we find fulfillment, I think, is bringing the highest level of your gifts to the people that it's most meaningful to you.
Yeah, I love that. And I know many entrepreneurs don't like to look at their numbers because they just look at their checkbook balance or their bank statement balance, and it's like, oh, there's still money in there. I must be doing something
Yeah.
right, right? But really knowing, how does your revenue come into your business, right? What, and having it broken down. That's where a good bookkeeper can help you say, what's your coaching income? What's your workshop income? What's your this service? Here's all your products. How much money is coming in for each one of those products? And maybe some of them are more profitable than the other ones, right? So it can become this little joyful treasure hunt. Like, here's the thing I really love to do, and it's profitable. And how do I expand that, right? Or it's not profitable. So how do I take what I love about that and package it with something that is more profitable for my
Or
business, right?
just like you did with your
Yeah.
whole business. It's like, this is profitable and it can be done by somebody else. And now
Right.
look how profitable it is for you. hardly works on her
Right.
business. She's got an entire business that almost runs itself. Like how
Yeah.
much fun would that be for you?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, knowing your numbers is key. And even though you don't want to look at them sometimes, think of it as an adventure, right? What can I learn from these numbers? So bookkeeper, VA, bookkeeper, a coach, I think a business mentor is really powerful. Being a coach, a business coach myself, I obviously think that's powerful, but just knowing the conversations I have with my clients and the value that they get out of having that conversation and having another set of eyes on their business, another person to talk through their plans with and just kind of occasionally poke holes in them or add to them, whatever that is, it's really valuable for especially solopreneurs to have that person. And I encourage you to find another business person to make that connection with, not necessarily a spouse or your girlfriends or, friends that are W-2 employees, because they're just not going to understand what it takes to be an entrepreneur and the decisions that you have to make every day, and the choices you're making, and they're not going to be as helpful as another business or an entrepreneur or a business coach or somebody like that.
Yeah.
So
I think another great person to have is just a straight on accountability partner. So I've got someone that we get together and we'll do the uh, and focus is a big issue for me. It's one of the most important things when you talk about productivity. We want to look at our time because our time is the most valuable asset. So how can you make the most of your time? And you and I love the timers and doing pomodoros and that kind of a thing. But honestly, focus for me is one of the biggest challenges. So just having someone that I come together and do accountability with, whether that's
oh,
in a formal program like peer advisory, but I'm a part of a mastermind group and I've got somebody individually. So what does your ideal team look like? Where do you need fortification in that process? How is your focus? Some people, very few, 5% of people can take something, run with it, implement it. Mary, you might actually be one of that 5%, I would say.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not. And so knowing that about myself, I get to implement. And it's kind of funny. I noticed when working with having VAs working for me, it almost becomes part of that accountability, because if I say on
Right.
Monday morning, you're going to have the content that you need for the newsletter for the week. Now I got to show up and have that done. Whereas when we're individually, it's easy to allow one thing to slip from one day to the next because we don't have that external eyes on us or the deadline that's pending.
Yes,
So,
yes. So that deadline slip or deadline creep, as I call it, right? So it's like, oh yeah, the deadline was March 1st, and then it's June 1st already, and we still haven't done it because nobody really knows the deadline except us, right? So that starts to erode our self-confidence and all of those other consequences of pushing those deadlines out. So again, accountability partner is a great option, but your VA can be, or your bookkeeper, right? They're going to ask you questions so that they can reconcile things. So you're going to have to get them statements or whatever it is, right? So there's some accountability built into all those pieces of your team, which is so
how about
powerful.
a collaboration partner like you and me when we got together
Yes.
as networking partners and reconnecting after a time, and then we both had said that we were interested in doing a podcast, but it's laborious. There's a lot to do, lots of moving parts, and it sparked for both of us to come together and do it in this way. And truly, we had busy schedules and we were
Yeah.
dedicated to the dates that we had set, and it's been so joyful and such a pleasure to do this with you, Mary, and so
Yeah.
fun to watch how easily and joyfully it came together, because we have our separate gifts that she did the production operation side of it, I did some of the design, and the other thing that we got to collaborate, and that's joyful for each of us to bring our
Yeah.
ideas together. And I mean, look what we've created. It's been very valuable, I think, and it's been a
Yeah.
complete joy to do. So it's brought energy to the rest of my business because I look forward to this, and I've got something shiny that I get to share with my audience.
Right, right. I love it. I love it. Yeah, and there is some accountability built into, we made the commitment, and so now we're honoring that commitment to each other by getting these things recorded and getting them out there. You mentioned focus quite a bit, and so we decided when we were going through our topics for today, what we are going to talk about, that there's so much around time management for solopreneurs that we're going to pull that out into a separate podcast and make it a bonus podcast, because Joyful Solopreneur is just a pop-up podcast, 9 episodes, and then we're done unless we really hear a lot of noise from you guys that you really want some more information from us. But there was enough there that we thought, instead of trying to cram it in 2 or 3 minutes during this episode, we're going to create a bonus episode all around our favorite time management tools for entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. So stay tuned for that. But we'll kind of wrap up today about.
Wait, we can't. We missed out on one of my favorite time-saving things, which is ChatGPT.
Oh,
And,
yes.
well, whatever AI. Honestly, guys, we are on the brink of one of the most biggest innovations to be able to leverage your individual time. I think they're saying that some of the next billion-dollar companies can be run by 3 people because of the advantage that AI can give us. I happen to go deep with one that I choose, which is ChatGPT. And when you look at the amazing time savings that you can get from this kind of a thing, I would say that you can potentially save upwards of 80% of your content management creation time once you invest a little time up front, go deep with one of the tools like that, and have this become your personal assistant before you can even afford your first VA.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT,
Yes.
just think of it an entire marketing or operations assistant. It can help in things related to invoicing, to customer service, to budgeting, to market research, to
Yes.
sales, to but certainly marketing content is the biggest thing that I think you can save a bunch of time. Visibility is going to be one of your biggest assets in getting your message out and attracting the clients you're meant to serve. And there's nothing like AI to become the most efficient outputter of that
Yes.
information. So embrace it. I don't know where you
Yeah.
are with it, if you've dived in, but I guarantee you the direction, the innovations that are coming, just being popped out. When we're recording this, ChatGPT, the 4.0 version came out, and the new the next step is going to be able to speak and have a dialogue with your AI, and
Yeah.
the potential that has for you to strategize around your business, get insight, and I mean, it's just off the charts valuable. So
Yes.
that's kind of like where I come in. I can help you to understand exactly how to put that to work for your business, and have a host of VAs that can support you in the implementation outside of it. But just that word implementation, I think, is such a huge one in this topic, because we can have the best intentions. And
Mhm.
what's so important is really for us to build in, and just like you said, with the, whether it's the financials, but really understand how well are you performing against what you said you were going to achieve for this week.
Mhm.
How efficient are you being, and how much are you implementing? Because we think we can do it all, but truly the most important thing is going to be building that momentum towards the posts that you've set for yourself, the targets that you've set. And we were talking about consistency versus action. You don't want
Mhm.
to every once a week run a marathon. It would be much more efficient to every day. What is your daily output, and what can you achieve in the week? And we tend to what is it? We overestimate what we can do in a year,
Yeah.
but underestimate what we can do in a longer term than that. So to really
Yeah.
get clear on what those things are. One of the books that I love, Mary, I don't know if you've read the 90-day work, no, the 90-day year, where rather than setting yearly goals, it's getting clear on what we can achieve this month. So what is the team that you need to support you in that? How are you executing as compared to those goals? And to really get clear, okay, how can I fortify my efforts, both with my own focus and managing my own time, but what team and what guidance and what support do I need beyond that?
Right, right. Yeah. So I'm part of a 12-week year sprint. I do
Sweet.
this several times throughout the year where it's 90 days, right? 12 weeks, where we really say, what are the 2 or 3 things max that I want to achieve by the end of this 90 days? And that's where your focus is, right? And so as entrepreneurs, our list gets longer and longer, right? And so it's really hard, especially for me. That's the hardest part, is what are the three things, just narrowing it down to three things, because there's so many things we want to do with our business, right? So that's again where having this team around you can help you set those priorities to say, what is really going to move the needle for me? What are the three things I'm going to work on that'll move the needle in my business? So I know we're at about time. So we're going to talk all about more time management tips and tricks and tools that you can use, like ChatGPT. So I want to wrap up today. This is episode 8 again. So we're almost at the end of our series. So episode 9 is all about the onwards with joy, planning what comes next. But we have our joyful challenge for you at the end of each episode. So our joyful challenge for today is to challenge you for your next big financial goal and the steps that they plan to take to achieve it in the upcoming months, right? So we're recording this in the month of June of 2024. You might be listening to it a year from now, but we're recording this in June of 2024. So we're almost done with the first 2 quarters of this year. So what do you want to achieve by the end of this year? Spend some time thinking about that. What do you want? What kind of joy can you bring into your business by the end of this year, right? How can you build your business around more joyful practices for yourself and that bring more joy to your clients? And
yeah, I would say, like, put on that CEO hat. If you're the $1 million
yeah,
CEO of your business right now, what does that next quarter and what does the rest of the year look like for you? What can you achieve, and get clear the
yeah.
finances and the team that you need to get there.
Yes, love it, love it, love it. Okay, so if this conversation of today or on any of the other episodes that we've done of the Joyful Solopreneur podcast make you want to reach out and talk to Kathy or I individually about what's happening in your business or how we might support you, please check the show notes below, because we will have links to our calendars in the show notes. So wherever you're listening, there should be some show notes attached beneath the podcast episode, and you can click on a calendar link and hop on a free discovery call, or I call them focus sessions, with either one of us, and we can just find out what's happening more in your business. Or if you just want to hop on our calendars and share, how you have enjoyed listening to the podcast or potential episodes you want us to go back and dig deeper in, like the time management tools, please give us some feedback. We'd love to hear that. We will have a survey for you at the end of episode 9. So if you get all the way to episode 9, we'd love to have you take the survey and find out what other topics might be of interest to you as solopreneurs. So I think that's it. We're going to wrap up for this episode. So go out and be joyful and have some fun in your business.